Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Hutchinson City Council meeting for Tuesday, July 14th, 2020. Approve the council agenda and any agenda additions or corrections.
Mayor, Council, I don't have any additions or corrections for you.
I'll make a motion to approve them.
Second.
Motion by Chad, second by Dave to approve the agenda. All in favor? Chad?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Invocation is from Riverside Church.
Good evening, everyone. This is Powerheads, and we'll pray, please. Thank you. Dear Jesus, I thank you for the leaders elected to this city council today. Give these individuals wisdom to make the right, responsible decisions. These decisions are difficult and take much thought and insight. Particularly help our mayor, Gary Forcier, as he leads our city of Hutchinson. I thank you for guidance and wisdom today, and thank you.
Had a little blurb there, huh, Matt? Next is Pledge of Allegiance. Dave, you want to lead us? Please stand.
Thank you. Join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Recognitions of gifts, donations, and community service to the city. Does anybody have anything tonight? Alrighty, public comment. Anybody out there, Matt, that wants to address the council?
Nope, we didn't have anybody sign up, Gary.
All right. Approval of minutes. We have the regular meeting minutes of June 23rd, 2020.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by Mary, second by Dave. Any other discussion? All in favor? Chad?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. All right, we have the consent agenda. This will be done with one motion unless somebody pulls something off for discussion. A, we have consideration for approval of issuing massage license to Heidi Thody. B is consideration for approval of resolution number 15187, resolution appointing election judges for the primary election. C is approval of telecommunication lease amendment renewal between the City of Hutchinson and T-Mobile. And D is claims appropriations and contract payments. Does anybody have anything they want to pull off?
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by Dave, second by Chad to approve the consent agenda. Any other discussion? All in favor? Chad?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. All right, we do have a public hearing, but we're going to skip ahead. You want to go down to 13, Matt, you said?
Yep, we do new business first.
All right, under new business, we have resolution number 15186, authorizing issuance of 2,465,000 general obligation improvement bond series 2028.
Hey, good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. Yeah, tonight we're here to sell some bonds, basically finance this summer's projects. The main project obviously is the Highway 15 and Main Street project. And then we're also funding a portion of the Civil Air Patrol utility extension out at the airport. Just wanted to remind you of this debt service being repaid by two components, essentially. Special assessments levied against the property owners, and those are over a 10-year period. And then we have our city debt tax levy, which is over a 15-year period. So I've seen the details from today's bond sale. Nick shared those with me this morning. I plugged those into our debt management plan and just need to report back that everything with this bond sale does fit within the parameters of our debt management plan. So no issues there. I won't share any more details. I think you'll be pleased, however, with this bond sale. But at this point, I'll just turn it over to Nick. He'll go through the information, and then if you have questions, feel free to ask. Either Nick or myself we're available to help out with any questions you do have. So with that, I'll turn it over to Nick Anhut. He's here from Ellers, our financial advisors.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Mayor and council members. Nick Anhut from Ellers and Associates here to discuss the results of this morning's sale. So on the city's behalf in financing the projects that Andy mentioned, we did receive 8 bids to purchase the city's bonds. These were $2.4 million worth of bonds to finance said projects. Those bonds do carry the city's general obligation pledge and its AA- credit rating from Standard & Poor's, which was affirmed 2 weeks ago by Standard & Poor's. We held a conversation with them, and despite the economic circumstances of the current recession and the COVID-19 response, they felt that the city and its financial practices were in a strong place and maintained that rating. They did not feel that there was any negative pressures or anything that would impact that rating over the next 2 years either. So kudos to the council in putting the city in this position. Obviously, a very strong fund balance and reserves helps lead the way for that affirmation, and them feeling that despite our expectations that there may be some negative economic impacts and potentially negative impacts to revenue sources in the short term, that those strong reserve positions would carry the city through and not pose any challenges as far as its credit. So with that said, that AA- rating puts the city in a very good position and directly resulted in quite a variety of bids from across the entire country on purchasing the bonds. But the winning bid actually came from a local bank out of Glencoe, Security Bank and Trust, who bid to purchase the entire amount of the bonds, all $2.4 million, and at their bid true interest rate of 1.08%. So that's calculating all of the interest costs over the 15-year life of the bonds. The total amount is only at 1.08%, which is reflective of a low rate environment that we are in, but also blew every other proposal out of the water and is a very good result. Cover bids ranged from anywhere between 1.2 all the way up to 1.38%. Still fairly low rates, definitely in line with what our expectations were, but this one is icing on top of the cake and a very, very good result. Just for comparison purposes, the difference between that low bid and the cover bids, about a $72,000 interest cost that we'll be able to save by executing on the low proposal from Security Bank and Trust. We've plugged in the numbers, done all the sizing that Andy mentioned. It does fit within the parameters of your long-term financial plans and is going to come in below our expectations from a month ago. Average levy impact of about $151,000, where we were seeing that was going to be much higher, almost $20,000 higher in our initial planning levels. So that will be additional savings, additional capacity that you can use for perhaps some future projects when those come forward on your future capital plans. Total net principal and interest after repaying all of the bonds over 15 years will be about $2.6 million. But otherwise, a very good result. much below what our expectations were for the level of payment needed, and we're very pleased as well. So with the council in your consideration this evening, there is a form of resolution in your packets for the issuance of $2.4 million of general obligation improvement bonds. Our final sizing will be $2,405,000. This will provide enough to finance the projects and keep you within the constraints of the statutory limitations for this type of bond issue. $2,405,000 general obligation improvement bonds, Series 2020A will be the final title of this amount. It's a great result. We're very pleased, and I'd be happy to stand for your questions. But congratulations.
Nick, I was disappointed you couldn't get us below 1%. So
I keep saying we'll try again next year, but I don't know if I ever meet your expectations now.
Well, this is Mary, and I think it's good.
We had 1.6% a couple of years ago. That we'd never seen anything below that. So this was pretty amazing. So.
No, I echo Mary's comment. Nick, you did a fantastic job. We're going to be happier. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion to?
I'll make a motion to
Okay.
approve resolution number 15186.
I'll second.
All right. Motion by Mary, second by Dave to approve resolution number 15186. Any other
Correction.
discussion?
Correction, Mayor Gary.
Yeah.
That was Chad. That seconded it.
Sorry. I'm writing and not watching the lips move, so. All right, motion by Mary, second by Chad. All right, any other discussion? Call a motion. Chad?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Thanks again, Nick. Matt, you wanted him to stick around a little bit,
Yeah,
too,
why
you
don't we
said?
jump up to item number 11, update on the CARES funding. We've talked with Nick a little bit, and so he might be able to provide some insight as we kind of jump into that topic. So,
All right, we're gonna go up to update on CARES funding, so go ahead, Matt.
yeah, I think both Annie and I will try to kind of tackle this, but as you recall, I know I sent out some emails regarding this, but towards the end of June, Governor Walz did send out or did sign legislation, or I think he took an executive order regarding the CARES Act funding that the state of Minnesota received from the federal government. And as a result of that action, the city is poised to receive $1,074,352 on behalf of the CARES funding was allocated to the city of Hutchinson. I think that was based off of $75 and some change per capita is what that accounted to. And so we've recently applied to receive that money. And as we get that money, now we're tasked with having to properly spend that in regards to the purpose of that money. One of the things that we've noted is obviously it's to help cover a lot of the costs related to COVID-19 and the impacts that it had on the city of Hutchinson. And Andy's put together a memo for you where he's kind of tried to summarize the funding and what that will be paid for, and really what we have left over for us that we need to have some discussion on. But in total, we estimate about 200,000 of that funding we can use to recoup some costs that we had expensed due to COVID-19. A lot of that was related to some leave pay that we assigned to our staff that was over and above what we would normally give. And then some of the costs that we incurred from unemployment benefits paid to upgrades that we made at the city center. And so obviously that's some good news. But that leaves us still with roughly $875,000 that we're tasked with taking on and needing to look at spending out. And so some of the options that are available to us is to potentially give some of that money back to the community as long as certain needs are met. I'll maybe hand it over to Andy to kind of walk you through what's available for us to use in regards to that funding.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Yeah, this funding comes with some pretty strict requirements of how we use it. There's really three elements that we need to satisfy to use these for cost. They must be necessary expenditures due to the public health emergency with respect to COVID-19. They must be unaccounted for expenses, so unbudgeted, not accounted for within our current budget. And then they must be incurred during the covered period between March 1st of this year through November 15th of this year. So whatever we don't use by that November 15th deadline has to go back to the county. Then the county has a chance to use it for some of their needs. And if they don't use all their funds, then they go back to the state. And then the state, I believe, has a chance to use them, and they eventually funnel back to the federal. So this is our opportunity to find some creative ways to use those monies. However, we have to be careful that we're not only documenting our proper use of these funds, but if we allocate funds to businesses or other entities, we're responsible to make sure they're used correctly, just as we need to abide by the requirements. So that's kind of the caveat. We can use these funds for other entities such as small businesses. However, they need to be for the same purposes that we would use them for. One important thing to point out, if we do utilize these for small business, it can't be used just for revenue shortage. It has to be used for expenditures, such as their mortgage or rent payments. It can be used for unemployment costs, basically any cost that they normally wouldn't have incurred due to the pandemic, but it can't be used for revenue loss, and it can't be used for property taxes. But there are other qualifying uses. So, and it can also be used for homeowners or renters. In that case, it can be used for delinquent rents or delinquent mortgages during the covered period. It cannot be used for property taxes. I think all utilities can't be used for utilities other than electricity. So homeowners could use it for electricity as well. So at this point, we do know what the city can reimburse itself for. I think there's maybe some miscellaneous costs that Hutch Utilities could be reimbursed with. The EDA, I think, is very minimal if they have any costs, and the HRA did receive some of their funding as well, so I don't think there's a need with HRA. So it's really, how do we want to utilize this monies, and that's what we're here to talk about tonight. I know Nick Anhut, he's a resource that I talked to this morning, and he's seeing some other cities utilizing these funds as well for small business grants or loans. So I could turn it over to Nick if you guys have questions, or
I'll just add a couple more things. One of the reasons we brought this up to the council tonight is that we're looking to get some direction from you on what you'd like to see us do. I mean, ideally, what our plan would be is that we'd come up, obviously, with a plan for that remaining money. We'd probably present it at the next council meeting to seek your blessing. We're starting to see other cities, and I think some that have come to mind, city of Bloomington, city of St. Louis Park, city of Edina have started to put together some economic resource packages for them to distribute back out to the community. And I think that's going to be our biggest challenge. And as we kind of talk about, especially when you deal with federal money and the federal red tape, as always, the devil's in the details. And so it's not, we can't just be handing out money per se without the proper documentation that it's actually has or is an incurred cost. And so we're going to have to make sure that any type of program that we put together that we implement that those funds are properly tracked, they're properly accounted for, and that we can carry those forward in regards to our reporting requirements. We've talked about the opportunity for grants and low interest loans. Any interest we would make, we cannot keep. Just so that's clarified, that would have to be turned around and passed over to most likely the state or the county or the federal government. Some of what we would propose if we look at doing a loan would be potentially a forgivable loan, as long as certain criteria is met. And so I said there's a lot of information. One of the things that both the League of Minnesota Cities has kind of forewarned us is that kind of like everything that has transpired during COVID-19, some of these requirements change daily and some of the eligibilities change daily. And so that's one of the things that, something may not be allowed today, tomorrow that could change. And that's, I think, some of the difficult things that we're trying to keep on top of. And so what we would like to do is for the next meeting is really put together a plan on how this money would be distributed. Obviously with the focus being on making sure we cover our costs first, and then with potential to turn around and hand that out to the public. One of the things that we didn't touch on is that there is potential for the schools to receive some money, but I will say, in speaking with the superintendent, they are getting some CARES money from I think the Department of Education, and you can't double up on it. So if somebody's already getting some sort of a CARES package, we can't add to that to the point where if you want to say you're doubling up, unless obviously an expense is not completely met. And there's the possibilities too regarding potential for, I think, the hospital and along with some other public health opportunities for reimbursement. And so I know there's a lot of information. I think it was 80 pages of stuff that I shared with the council. And I think Andy's done a pretty good job of trying to kind of consolidate that into a method hopefully you guys can understand. And one thing too that we can reimburse ourselves for is consultant services, or if we need to bring somebody on board to help us with this process, that's an allowable expense as well. So Nick, anything maybe if you want to add that Andy or I didn't touch on?
The only other aspect that I would add is maybe just a sense of kind of housekeeping. These funding is a kind of a one-time advantage that we all have, but you still needs to operate within the framework of what the city under its charter is legally able to do. So we still have some requirements to maintain a level. If we are providing a business subsidy, that we address that appropriately in the agreements. Similar type for other types of grant programs. Maybe this could mirror some activity that the city already does through its EDA. So we might, as you go forward, depending on what kind of feedback you give, you might want to hand some of this money. Hand it might not be the right, but transfer these funds to the EDA to allow them to administer them. The EDA has some ability to do things that you as a city cannot necessarily do, as far as being a limited partner in an enterprise, or having the ability to maybe have some additional security in the type of loans or grants that they give out. So that would be the only thing that I would add, is maybe the involvement of the EDA.
And just to add to that, I think the city of Bloomington had a report that came out this past weekend where I think the city, transferred, I think it was about 1.3 million to their port authority, which is equivalent to our EDA. And so that's how that kind of worked. And I would echo what Nick said. The EDA is really our partner in this that would make sense in regards to business subsidies. And so I would see if we head down this road, we put together a plan that's going to include funding to the EDA, which most likely then would be responsible for distributing that. And I've already had a conversation with Miles, and they're more than willing to help out and jump on board with that. But like I said, I think really between now and probably our next meeting and probably the early part of August, it's really trying to hash out those details of, if we were to go down that route, what would that look like? And then I think the last thing I wanted to add, we did have a meeting with the county last week. They are open for collaboration. There was a suggestion of, all legal entities in the county, because we're not obviously the only city that received funding. All the other cities did too as well, along with the townships, I think, except for Biskie, because they were under 200 in population. We could give all the money to the county and let them administer it. I think my desire is, or our desire would be, that we use the money that we have to first try to attempt to address our local community. Because the one thing to keep in mind, if they get CARES funding from the city, they couldn't get CARES funding from the county as well. I mean, unless there was, I suppose, a gap in that funding source. So those are all the various different, I said, red lines that I talked about that we have to kind of work through. With that, unless you had anything else, I guess I'd open it up to the council for any questions, comments, or feedback in regards to this.
I mean, can we put together somewhat similar to what the PPP loans were, where they had to be earmarked for certain uses like rent and, payroll and that kind of thing, and just do it on a much smaller scale? Obviously 800 grand sounds like a lot of money, but it's not going to go very far, and like limit it, so that a lot of businesses can get something.
Yeah, and I think, part of what we don't know right now is what the need would be of the community. Because like Andy and I noted, it has to be recordable expenses that you've already either incurred or will incur between now and November 15th. And so that's some of the challenges. But I think, Chad, along those lines, if that's kind of the thought process, we could try to structure a program that goes along those lines, that who knows, maybe you have almost a pre-application where you kind of try to find out what the need is within the community, which may be able to help you structure the amount of money, if you go along the lines, Chad, of trying to help as many businesses as possible. So I think that's definitely a possibility.
I mean, I don't know anybody that didn't apply for the PPP loan. So, but that was very much on the front end of this whole thing. And some businesses are up, some are down, some are flat. When the PPP stuff came out, everybody was kind of scared because it was very much on the front end. But I got to think people would apply. And I just don't see why people wouldn't.
And maybe Andy or Nick, you guys correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think if they had any PPE costs, I don't think they could use the CARES funding on top of that. Unless it'd have to be something separate outside of that PPE.
Right. You can't use it for something that's already been funded by federal dollars.
So.
Right. I understand that, but it would just be, because there was a very specific window for that PPP stuff, which that window is come and gone. So wouldn't that open this up? It's like, but you wouldn't consider like your rent for whatever it was, May, you wouldn't be able to double that up, but could you use it for rent in September or whatever?
And you're correct, Chad. Because really this window is March 1st to, November 15th. So that does expand upon where some of that other federal programming came into place.
Do we have the staff to administer such a program? Like I realize like Miles and Maddie are probably chomping at the bit to administer, 400 applications, but that could get pretty wild.
That's part of the reason that we've got Nick here with us tonight is, we reached out to him this morning, where we would, potentially have to probably lean on them to help us a little bit. But one of the things that we noted, at the end of the day, we're responsible for ensuring that money went to the proper location. So we're going to want to have some involvement in that, but I think we very well could find ourselves in need of some help.
We could get Nick an office, a temporary office in the Enterprise Center right next to Miles. It's all set up. It's got a desk and everything. It's pretty nice in there.
I've been there.
I bet you have.
Well, the thing of it is that, yes, businesses did open, but they incurred a lot of costs to get to the guidelines so they can be open. So I think this would help them out, because I know even at the city center here in the library, the liquor store, they had to put up the guards for their employees and the people coming in, and all the other businesses had to do that too. So I mean, there was a lot of costs incurred just so they could be open again.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know if we want to limit it to businesses that have obviously been hit harder, like restaurants and hairstylists and that type of thing that obviously haven't been able to open at full capacity. Like some businesses haven't really been affected, but like with the PPP stuff, you could pretty much apply no matter what you were doing, as a business. But maybe we talk about limiting it to the people that are still being limited.
Well, and I want to say, Andy, and I can't find the language, maybe you or Nick, but I know there's language in this that specifically talks about those that, I want to say hurting isn't the right word, but they use some of that language of, I think that was financially in trouble per se. Like I said, I think you used some probably maybe more favorable language than what I'm using, but I can't remember exactly what that was.
I think,
Distressed.
I think the key is they've either had to have been closed because of the pandemic or suffered expenditures because of the pandemic, essentially. So if a business was closed because of the state orders, they would qualify. Or if they weren't closed because of state orders, but closed out of concerns over the pandemic, then that would qualify as well. That's how I've read into this packet.
Yeah. I mean, you could go to the point of, if you want to limit to employees under a certain, size too. I think that's some of what we need to kind of work on. And we were just kind of looking to get that direction on, yes, we'd like to see this money kind of go out. And then that's kind of where staff would run with to try to put together a program that would, like I said, hopefully bring back to the council for your consideration at the next meeting. Sorry, Nick, did you have something to jump in on that?
I just wanted to add that it could also be used for proactive measures to open back up, so as you're mentioning, retrofitting buildings or making improvements to allow customers to maintain distancing and things like that. It can be used directly for those types of expenditures as well, not just hurting, but the ability to continue operations.
I think that with the help of the EDA and Nick and our city staff, we should be able to pull this together. I really think that the businesses, the small businesses, they need the help. I mean, and there's so many of them that are running, but they're running like at not even a quarter or less of what they used to do. You look at the salons and the massage parlors and all of them. I mean, even the dentists, they're all limited as to how many people they can get through their business and how much they can do in a day. So we definitely need to give this money back to the ones that need it. That's it for me.
Is there anything else, Matt or Nick? Do you have anything to add?
Andy, I feel comfortable, I guess, in the direction. I think
so too.
I think it's pretty wide open, which is fine.
Yeah, I can talk with Miles. There's a EDA finance team meeting tomorrow. Maybe it's some members from that team who get together for planning this. We'll see. I'll talk to Miles.
I think it'd be good to see what some of these other cities have. That's how we work best, is to see how some of these other cities have put something together and use that to tweak to what's best for our community. So,
right.
We can legally cheat here in city government when it takes other people's ideas. So at least, especially when it comes to city government and sharing other city government ideas. So that's kind of the nice thing with being able to take. I suppose I better watch how I say legally cheat and government in the same sentence. So now I'm going to be.
You just have to call it sharing, Matt.
I thought sharing was appropriate.
Yep, sharing. Here we go. Thanks, Chad, for protecting me once again. So.
All righty. Thanks again, Nick.
Thanks, you guys.
All right, we do have a public hearing. Assessment hearing for the Truck Highway 15 Main Street reconstruction and Truck Highway 15 ADA and overlay improvement project, letting number 1, project number 20-01. Good evening, Ken.
Mayor and Council. Yes, like Mayor Forcier said, once again, we're bringing forward our assessment hearing for the Highway 15 Main Street project. Unfortunately, we're still waiting to hopefully have that in a more public forum. There might be interested property owners. Obviously, we have a number of property owners that are being assessed on that project. Thus, we are recommending that you open the hearing this evening and then recess the hearing until September 22nd, their second regular council meeting in September. The hope is, we'll be back in a regular environment by then. I don't know if that'll be the case, obviously, but I guess we can recess it again. Ultimately, we do have some time to administer the hearing. We aren't administering these assessments until 2022. So reviewing the league's guidance on assessment statute 429 policy, we're fine with recessing this hearing and looking towards this fall or later, I guess. So that's a recommendation. So I think you need to open it and then recess it.
Yep.
Correct, Matt? Yep.
Yeah, Mayor,
Process wise?
Mayor, you have to officially open the public hearing.
Okay.
The recommendation would be to recess it to that September 22nd.
All right, we'll open the public hearing. And then recess it to
There should
September.
be a motion to recess it to
Okay.
September 22nd, to recess the public hearing to September 22nd at 6 p.m.
I'll make that a motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Chad, second by Mary to recess it till September 22nd. Chad,
Aye.
Mary,
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. We do have a public hearing for Truck Highway 7 and 22 and Montana Street crossing improvements. That's Letty number 2, project number 20-2. We have resolutions underneath there. Resolution number 15188, resolution ordering improvement and preparations of plans and specifications. And resolution number 15189, resolution approving plans and specifications and ordering advertisement for bids. Ken?
Yes, I don't know how much detail I need to get into on this project. Obviously, we've spoken about this with council for many years, a number of times. We're finally to the point of administering the actual public hearing. This will allow us to utilize bonding dollars, next year's bonding dollars, if necessary, to deliver this project. We're looking to bid this project this fall. However, due to the lead times and the traffic signal equipment, the fabrication lead times are still 6 months or so out. So our hope is we can get through the MnDOT plan review process, which is currently underway, get it out for bids here in the next 3 weeks or so, open bids in early September, and then award it hopefully late September, if not early October, and then that'll get the clock ticking with respect to the contractor. Hopefully we get a good price, obviously, and are able to award the project. And then the contractor can order the traffic signal equipment, specifically the poles and mast arms necessary. And those should arrive March, April timeframe next spring and hopefully be installed by, I would say, mid-June. We'd give the contractor. So yeah, with that, unless there's any specific project questions, I can bring up a diagram. We have that available. I don't know if that's necessary. Like I said, we've spoken about this many times. It's an overhead hawk system, similar to the system up in St. Cloud on Division Street. That's been there for a number of years. MnDOT has shown a willingness to support this project. So, as far as the plan review, there you go. Matt's got the one up there, up in St. Cloud. They've shown a willingness to support this. I guess the one concern is the price. As we finalized the design and the technical consultant provided a final cost estimate, the price has gone up like everything else in the last year or two here. MnDOT has dedicated, state funds, $40,000, federal funds, $160,000. Our current estimate construction wise is right around $300,000. Right now I do have some engineering fees assigned to the project. The hope would be that we could generate engineering fees on other projects next year. And then ultimately, if we get a bid that actually reflects the $300,000 amount, MnDOT has communicated that once we receive a bid, they are receptive to looking for additional project funding. So yeah, with that, I guess I recommend proceeding with the two resolutions, and we'll get things underway and hope for the best during the bidding process.
Say, Kent, I'm just thinking for obviously the public.
Yeah, you want to bring up the diagram?
I'll put the
Yep,
diagram
there you
up.
go. Yeah, there's the diagram of the Montana Street and Highway 7/22 intersection. Yeah, this intersection, when it was built back in 2007, was configured for a future full traffic signal system when warrants demanded a traffic signal system. Obviously, the envisioned housing to the north hasn't occurred since then. That whole open field north of the Golf Course Road roundabout was envisioned for additional housing, even potential development on the Maplewood Academy property was discussed many years ago. And ultimately, Montana Street would reach up to North High Drive, County Road 12. That hasn't occurred. Thus, we're many years from seeing a full signal system at this intersection. So we've been talking about this high visibility traffic control system, or I gotta get my acronym right, high intensity activated crosswalk system, HOC system, for many years. And yeah, like I said, fortunately, MnDOT District 8 is a willing partner. This will be the first system of this type within our district out here. So look forward to it. Just by coincidence, I guess, happenstance, I actually was out there taking a look at the intersection yesterday, driving through it, and saw a young mother with a stroller and probably a 3-4-year-old cross from the north. So yeah, a truck was willing to stop for her. So obviously that's a good thing. The crossing, the trail crossing, is marked now. As of the last 2 years, MnDOT finally did provide signage for that crossing of the West Lake. So yeah, it's being utilized, not as much as other crossings, uncontrolled crossings in town. But like we've talked before, we feel this is necessary. The long-term traffic signal solution is not coming in the near future. So yeah, this is a worthwhile investment, and MnDOT believes so to the tune of $200,000. So we look forward to delivering the project next spring.
All right, we open it up for public comment.
It doesn't appear you're going to get any.
All right.
We'll make a motion to close the hearing.
I'll second.
Motion by Chad, second by Mary to close the public hearing. Chad?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Have a motion to approve both resolutions.
I make that motion to
I'll
approve both
second it.
hearings.
Motion by Dave, second by Mary to approve resolution number 15188 and resolution number 15189. Any other discussion? Chad?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thanks,
Thank you.
Ken. Review of water distribution and wastewater collection treatment long-term capital improvement plan.
Yes, Mayor and Council, I'll lead this off, and then we have our technical consultants from Nero Engineering also here this evening to deliver part of or the majority of a presentation that will provide. There's a lot of information within your packet. This has been long overdue. This is something staff and our consultant have been working on for a year and a half or so. And really this exercise, was deemed necessary from two standpoints. First and foremost, our wastewater treatment plant, as you're well aware of the fact that, half of our, well, I shouldn't say half, but probably more than half of our treatment system out there is the old oxidation ditch and clarifier system that was built in the mid-'80s. We did a wastewater treatment facility assessment, really digging into really that part of the plant, looking at its longevity, future needs, costs associated with those needs and upgrades, basically to extend the life of that portion of the plant, to bring it up to speed so it could parallel the expected life of our membrane bioreactor system, that portion of the treatment train that was built, put online in 2008. So with that, you might have noticed in your packet, there's a lot of information with respect to that wastewater treatment facility assessment. There's the assessment summary. There's Tim Gradke, our wastewater supervisor's notes on that front. There's also our long-term water and wastewater CIP documents over the next 20-year time frame. And then lastly, in the packet, there's a presentation, a PowerPoint presentation with respect to the long-term CIP on the water wastewater fronts, and then also the assessment study. So with that, Matt, if you can bring up that presentation, please. I'll kick this off. Like I said, obviously myself, Tim, and Eric have been involved. Eric and Jennifer from Nero, I'll let them introduce themselves here shortly. This has been a work in progress for quite a while. Want to go to the next slide, please? The primary projects on the water side of things, they're more they're more routine, I guess. There's more of a cycle to these over the course of time as we look out to the next 20 years. The first one is a definite need, our SCADA system, and in essence, our control system. And this pertains to both the water and the wastewater plant. Albeit it's not terribly old. The SCADA control systems were implemented in 2006 on the water side of things and 2008 on the wastewater side of things. But we've had definite issues and concerns with those systems for quite a while. So we're looking at upgrades on that front. And then you get into more, like I said, routine, infrastructure investments on the water side of things. We need to go back to our Century Water Tower coating rehab. We're looking at doing the interior coatings in 2022, and then we'll catch up on the exterior in 2029. Something we've spoken about for quite a while, water meter replacements. We've been pretty happy with the performance of our meters and the little bit of testing we've done over the years, but our meters are getting to be quite dated. Basically, the vast majority of them date back to the 1980s, give or take. Obviously there's some newer meters in homes, in businesses built since the 80s, so through the 90s and 2000s primarily. But now it's getting to be the time to look at doing a large scale meter replacement project. And then we get back into doing our own membranes, which we just did recently here, doing those on a 6-year cycle. So 2025, 2031, then obviously 37. In our long-term plan, we have a well identified, an additional well. This will really depend on the performance of our existing 5 wells and how happy we are with those. And it also, obviously, it would depend on future capacity needs. At this point in time, we don't anticipate any significant water capacity needs, but you never know, depending on growth and specifically industrial growth, that may occur and may drive that a little bit. Then we start looking at the water treatment plant itself. You know, come 2032, the plant will be over 25 years old. So we'll start having to look at the roof and HVAC systems and other structural needs, improvements. And then we get into 33 South Park Water Tower coating rehab. We just did that about 2013, I believe, give or take. So that coating system will be 20 years old. Obviously, we analyze those coatings prior to initiating a project. We'll do an analysis probably 3-4 years out from the end of the expected life cycle to determine if it's absolutely necessary or if there's more life left in that coating system. And then we get to the water meter transmitter replacements. Yeah, those will be basically at about 25 years at that point in time, just short of 25 years. I think the batteries were warranted for 20 or 25 years, if I remember correctly. And then we get into the golf course water tower coatings, and then we look at the fairly significant water treatment plant need on the ammonia treatment side of things. I don't know if there's any questions with respect to water plant, the primary projects looking forward. Next slide.
Yeah, I'm trying to get there.
Next couple slides are on the wastewater front, and what I'll probably do is lean on Tim here a little bit. He's more familiar with this list. Yeah, I don't know if you just want to breeze through it, Tim.
Sure, yeah. Yes, Mayor and Council, leading a lot of these projects, being the age of the original plant, this list gets a little more extensive. Some of these get pretty large due to some kicking of the can and lean years. Some of this stuff is probably bunched up and gathered up to where we need to address them fairly soon and fairly quickly. The big one, even our own IT department concurs with this one, I think. The SCADA system, the hardware and the software, that's something that's critical to get replaced. It'll take us several years to replace that out at the wastewater plant. One thing that we're undertaking already is looking at this preliminary treatment redesign and the EQ system modification. That's the way that the plant receives all the wastewater from the city and then distributes it to our various processes, the ditch and the MBR and the EQ. Biosolids digesters, the aeration system there in order to digest the biosolids has been modified from its original form. Doesn't work very efficiently. There's a lot of efficiencies to be realized when you're talking blowers and fans and getting VFDs put in so that we can separate mixing and aeration, only give it as much air as we need, and then mix it the rest of the time through simpler means. Another one in 21, looking to next year, we just today kind of commissioned that east oxidation ditch switch from the rotor mixing and aeration to the separate aeration and mixing done by the Aero 2 Triton mixer system. And the continuation of that would be replacing the final 2 rotors with the necessary size Tritons, and then putting in process optimization with VFDs and other controls to control finally to designated DO set points. Of course, we've been talking the last few years about our lift station, remote lift station rehabs. That's just kind of a 1 a year schedule to go through the whole system. And so those will continue from 21 to 27. In 24, we're looking at having to touch the MBR aeration basin, aeration fine bubble diffuser system, and do some optimizing there also. Our presses for the biosolid system to take our waste product and press the water out of it and deliver it to the fields. They're getting very aged. So this is the first one we would look at. Either has to go through an overhaul or replacement of, some new technology. 25 through 27, we look at the clarifiers from the oxidation ditch side, rehabbing the domes. There's rake drives in the bottom of them, and then just all the return pumps and piping that are going to be 30 some years old by then, or 40 years old. And then 28 looks at the second belt press for the biosolids. Then as we get out, like I said, things tend to taper down a little bit, and when we get into the out years of the 20-year plan, and it's just picking up things that are just getting really, really old, and we've gotten more than our useful life out of from the original plant. And that would be looking at possibly doing the same thing we did to the east ditch to the west ditch and replacing the rotors with some different means of separation of mixing and aeration should demand dictate that we need to put that other ditch online. In 31, we look at every 15 years, 12, 15 years, looking at these scour air blowers, and then we'd have to touch on some HVAC replacements at that time due to the age of the MBR. Looking forward, every so often, you're going to have to look at SCADA hardware and software just because of the life of that kind of component is usually around 10 to 12 years. In 2023, we predict that we would have to do another MBR module replacement and maybe add the additional cassette capacity that we have in the MBR train. That was something that we did a couple years ago, and we predict will probably have to happen in 12 to 15 years from when we did it last time. So we did it in 18. We're predicting we'll get at least 15 years out of the present membranes. 2020 or 34, we look at UV disinfection system. It's just something that's, again, going to be that age. It was put in 08 with the membrane project and just will be at the end of life and inefficient. And then, again, like I say, we'll get 20 years probably out of our lift station rehabs that we're doing now, and just predicting that we'll have to go through and rehab them all and look at the pumps and piping and valves at those out years of 2036 through 11, 12 years of doing that to 2047. And then just on the last year of the plan, we just said, again, we'd probably have to look at the SCADA hardware or software updates. So if there's any questions with those goals.
Thanks, Tim. With that, yeah, just want to reiterate within the packet is the actual Excel spreadsheet worksheet that included all of these major projects along with other more minor improvements over the 20-year time frame. It's in present value, present worth, however you want to word it, dollars. It equates to about $700,000 some dollars annually on the water side, about 1.2 million or so on the wastewater side. And like I said, this exercise was really necessary to incorporate in the ongoing rate study that we hope to finalize towards the end of the year, bring it to council early 2021 with the intent, if council determines necessary, of implementing revisions to our rate structures, conservation rates per se on the water side of things in 2022. And yeah, with that, I think the other thing just to mention, I think Nero will touch on this also. This CIP, long-term CIP analysis, does not account for potential changes to our MPCA wastewater effluent permit. which is currently under review by PCA staff. So we're just hoping that just stays in a holding pattern as long as possible. We're fine with letting that be. PCA is working through some rule changes currently, and that might take some time. So yeah, I just want to mention, you know, if our PCA permit changes and specifically our phosphorus treatment requirements, you know, stiffen up, increase, yeah, that will definitely impact this CIP, the long-term infrastructure needs on the wastewater side of things. So with that, I will turn it over to Eric and Jen, or just Eric. All right, I'll let you introduce yourselves, and thank you much.
Thank you, City Council and City staff for giving us an opportunity to present our efforts with this project. Can you go back one? So this project that we did for the city was done in full collaboration with Tim and his staff at the wastewater plant. Obviously, they know their equipment way better than we did, so incorporating their assessment of all of these equipment was quite important. The project goals, I'll briefly describe each one of these a little bit, was to, for the first time, was to detail and tabulate equipment throughout the facility. So this was a head-to-toe inventory of the entire facility. Along with that tabulated list, we did the assessment, did an assessment of the age and condition of each piece of equipment. Working with Tim's staff, we assessed the condition that was based upon not only the life expectancy, but also what sort of utilization and condition each piece of equipment had. Based upon that, we developed a remaining service life, how much life was left in each piece of equipment. Following that, we developed cost opinions for replacement of the equipment. Each piece of equipment was identified in kind of three categories for replacement, a replacement in kind. Then there were some that were replacement in kind, but with efficiencies and energy improvements. And then there were also areas of processes and equipment where there was a complete redesign was needed to make improvements at the wastewater plant. Once all the cost opinions were developed, we prioritized the equipment replacements, working with Tim's staff to identify where the needs were, prioritize the needs of the when and where. And along with that, we also tried to balance these prioritization of the various equipment and projects to help meet some annual budgets set by the city. I want to talk a little bit about how we did or what executed this project to give you a little context of all of the detail that's I think is in your packet. As part of the condition assessment, there was a five-tiered grade system that was utilized. As you can see, from 1 to 5, 1 being excellent, and which meant that that piece of equipment was in sound or like new condition, all the way to 5, which was awful, or the asset or that piece of equipment has failed or about to fail. So each piece of equipment was graded individually with Tim and his staff. A little breakdown of how that assessment turned out. You can see most of the equipment associated with the 1988 oxidation facility ranged from grades from 3 to 5, as it's been 30 plus years old, compared to the MBR equipment that was installed in 2008. Most of that equipment is still in excellent and good condition. So you gives you some idea of where most of your, you could see that about 3/4 or 2/3 of the equipment there falls in the fair to awful range of condition. From there, the service life evaluation, this was used to develop how much remaining life was in each piece of equipment to help determine when a piece of equipment should be replaced. The expected life and or the utilization rate also played a role in this. If you can imagine, you put new tires on your car that has 60,000 miles, but it sits in your garage, or you're only gone through after 10 years, 30 years or 30,000 miles. That doesn't necessarily mean that you have half the life left on those tires, right? So it also takes into account that, you know, not only the how much you're utilizing it, but also what that life, based on that life expectancy is. And that's fine. And so that's how we use to develop the list, the tables that you'll see there. And I'll kind of turn this over to Jennifer. She'll kind of walk you through some of the various processes in the budgeting part of this. Next slide.
Thank you. But here's a visual of the annual costs over the 20 years. You can see it doesn't all fit in the box or in that 1.2, wasn't it 1.2 average?
Yeah,
Annual.
that's what other infrastructure system needs
Okay.
beyond this on it, yeah.
All right, so this is just to provide a visual for those needs. Here's an overview of the wastewater treatment plant processes. The subsequent sheets, I'm not going to go through in detail, but here's a good visual that you can refer to which buildings I'm talking about, and I'll just generally talk about what we found in each process. So building 20 is the main lift station. Here the wastewater is processed through channel grinders and then it is pumped to the wastewater treatment plant. Most of the equipment in this building is replaced in kind, apart from the type of cutters on the grinders, which it's recommended that cutters more appropriate for wipes be used to help process those. Building 30 is the headworks, and Tim touched on this and the needs at the preliminary treatment building here. The processes in this building are screening, grit removal, and flow splitting. Most of this building was originally constructed in 1988 and then added in 2008 with the MBR project, additional drum screens and grit removal was added. Most of the equipment from 1988 is in need of replacement, but rather than replacing in kind, process improvements are needed. So we will be replacing that equipment with a different process, and then most of the equipment from 2008 will remain because it is in good condition. Building 40 is the equalization basin. The equalization basin is used during high flow events when the ditch and the MBR cannot process the entire flow. So the EQ pumps are original to the 1988 facility and will need replacement. This will be part of consideration in the preliminary or the headworks project. And then the liner has about 6 years left, we estimate. The next building, that also included the mixed liquor splitter box. That's fine. There's not a lot of equipment in this structure, basically gates that were recently replaced. So the anticipated replacement for those is at the end of the 20-year period. Building 50 is the oxidation ditch. This is original to the 1988 facility, and we propose that we address the age of the equipment as well as make process and energy improvements for today's conditions. Building 55, looking at building 50, a lot of that equipment shown are the existing rotors, which will be replaced with the Aero 2s like Tim mentioned. Building 55 is the MBR facility, so most of this equipment is just replacing kind when needed further down the line. A lot of equipment in this building. Building 60 are the final clarifiers, which are after the oxidation ditch. Most of this equipment is from the 1988 facility, but because the pump utilization here isn't 100%, they've lasted, the equipment has lasted beyond the normal 20-year life expectancy, but we do anticipate replacement in the next 5 to 10 years here. Building 80 is the UV disinfection system. This was installed with the 2008 MBR project, so the equipment is mainly replacing kind 15 to 20 years down the road. And building 90 is a solids handling building. Like Tim mentioned, this facility is original to the 1988 plant, and the aerobic digesters are in dire need of some modification or some improvements after the mixing and aeration system has been field modified over the years. So energy improvements are recommended so they operate as they should. So generally, what we found is that there's a dire need to address the age and condition of the original 1988 facility. The poorly operating headwork processes has a large impact on the rest of the facility, and the current facility headworks does not remove much grit, and that really wears on equipment downstream. So there are urgent improvements needed there. The main lift station, the MBR building, final clarifiers and disinfection have largely replacing kind equipment. Solids processing, like I said, the aeration system has urgent needs. And like Kent mentioned, we did not address the potential impacts with the upcoming permit, but nothing that we're proposing be done or that we've considered will adversely affect what might be coming. All these improvements we feel are necessary to keep the plant up to par.
One more thing that I did want to mention to the council too, just so there's a little more understanding and context to the cost part of this that show up in all of these tables and summaries, is that the equipment, we worked with Tim and his staff to get an understanding of some of the replace in kind equipment that they could replace themselves, others that maybe needed some outside assistance from contractors, and then those that were going to be completely gone out for competitive bids as part of a larger project. So the costs that are reflected in the tables there are in consideration of, I think, a lot of the equipment, particularly the smaller equipment, being replaced with their staff's time and labor and materials, and to help, to make that, the numbers that are presented there are a little more real and not just highly inflated, like everything is going to go out for competitive bids when it really isn't necessary.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, that's a good point by Eric there. Yeah, we made a concerted effort. We have a very talented staff, operational wise and maintenance wise, and thus we want to utilize their skills as much as possible so we don't incur additional costs, capital costs and such contracting costs, that we can administer in-house. So there was a conscious effort there to address things as much as possible in-house with our skilled staff. With that, this was what I would say a long overdue effort, both on as far as doing an assessment of the wastewater treatment facilities, specifically the older portion of the plant, like I said. And I think more importantly, just looking forward for the 20-year needs on both the water and wastewater side of things. We built the plants, the new plants at relatively the same time in 2006 with respect to the water plant, 2008 with respect to the wastewater membrane bioreactor plant treatment side, and things changed, as I'm sure council realized shortly thereafter. Obviously there was a recession. There were some industrial treatment demands that went away that were, programmed into those plant expansions. Really we went into a preservation mode for many years, like Tim alluded to, with respect to a capital improvement side of things, specifically on the wastewater plant, the older plant portion of our infrastructure out there. The wastewater, that being said, the water treatment plant, we're beginning to learn, specifically Mr. Levine's beginning to learn, isn't getting any younger. Was built in 2006. Well, actually it was built in 04, 05. It was, brought online in 2006. That's approaching 15 years old, believe it or not. And we're seeing, things pop up on that end, unexpectedly also. So, now's the time to really take a serious look forward. That's why we bring this information forward to council. We're not looking for an approval. We're looking for feedback, if there is any. And like I said, at this point, we'll then take this information, specifically the long-term capital improvement plan information, and move it forward into our rate study effort, like I mentioned, that we hope to finish up towards the end of the year here. So with that, are there any questions, thoughts?
Yeah, Kent, I have something for Tim. Tim, is the flushable wipes, are they still a problem out there?
Yeah, there's still a problem. I actually got a call from John Olson this morning, said that a few of the parks have been seeing issues at their restrooms, and wanted me to try to meet with maybe Sarah and Dolph or somebody on that end to just discuss, is there anything we can do on a small scale where some, items like that are getting into the system but causing problems immediately downstream and for their public utilities there. I had a few suggestions to begin with that were a little lighthearted, but we'll dig into that and see if there's anything there. But they're not going away anytime soon. The stuff we see on the screens just is consistent. And there's no real good way of dealing with them until you get them to a screen where they can be taken out of the system and not run through any more pumps further down the line. Does that answer your question, Mayor?
Yes, thank you. Yep.
Sure.
Tim, do you think that it'd be probably a good thing for us to maybe post stuff in the restrooms around, like in the parks?
Yeah, I've come across some signage just online that you can kind of borrow. And if I put some online where I suggested even local businesses, if they wanted to borrow those signs and help us out or help themselves out, if these things are flushed down their sewers, their systems, and cause problems before they get to our system, that's on their dime. So anything they can do to help us and help themselves, and it just something as easy as a sign, on the back of the stall door, or other places where they just say, this is what goes in, basically toilet paper and excrement and nothing else, and everything else goes into the trash. The toilet is not a trash can, and that's the main thing. So I'm open to helping people get signage if that's something that people are looking for, the public or businesses are. They can definitely contact me at my number at the wastewater plant office number. So I think we do have something probably still on the website, and we can bring that forward in a.
Yeah, we push stuff out on social media too from time to time.
Yeah, so I know I did 4 months ago or whatever. I think I did put a sign that could be used as an attachment on the webpage and stuff like that. So yeah, I encourage people. The more education, the better. If they get the word out there, everything helps. So.
Alrighty, thanks, Tim.
One thing.
Thank you.
One thing I'll just add too, at least from the financial perspective, is that it allows us to do a better job even from a budgeting when it comes to our CIP. I think when this is probably a conversation when I first started about trying to get more accurate numbers, and this report goes a long way in doing that and really helps us from a budget perspective. As Kent noted, obviously when it comes to a rate study, but just from a year-to-year budget perspective, we've got a lot better idea now on what our actual costs were. I think in the past, we were simply just kind of earmarking a dollar amount. This will allow us to actually address the needs moving forward.
Tim, is along that lines, what does it usually cost to clean up a valve when it's stuffed with wipes?
It depends really what is stuck. If it's a submersible pump, one thing we're looking at is in next year's budget is part of the fleet, trading in kind of our maintenance truck and going to something that more has a hoist and the ability to pull our own pumps. Before a few years ago, every time a pump got clogged with wipes, they would have to call in a pump service. They would be dispatched at, travel time, windshield time, and, $100 and some an hour, I suppose, and whatever actual time they spent there. And they might not be able to get there for till the next day or whatever. So if we can get those facilities, and that equipment in-house, then we'll be able to do it more ourselves and on, hopefully staff time or just, an overtime call or whatever to our own staff. But we have been utilizing in the recent years the streets department sign truck. It's not ideal, but it reaches most of our pumps. But we need something a little bigger, a little more heavy duty and general purpose for that. So, but yeah, the costs are at, they add up. I mean, if you look at our stuck valves, the first one cost us $250,000 in a piping project to change out. Now, because of that project, the one that stuck last year, we were able to do it a lot cheaper. And we've taken steps since then to clean all that debris out of that Headworks wet well. But this project that we're putting together with the preliminary treatment project will hopefully alleviate a lot of that stuff there.
Alrighty, thanks, Tim.
No, thank you. Thanks for the questions.
Yep.
If I may, this is Eric again here. If I may piggyback on a comment that Matt just made about where this document puts the city. We put, as you notice from some of the tables, there's quite a level of detail that was put into that, and not every community has that head-to-toe listing of all of the equipment and processes. So I would hope that our intent was to make this kind of a living, breathing document for the city that as time goes on and years go on and as we make these improvements, that it gets updated. So when you do these assessments, it isn't quite so painstaking for, whether the city does it internally or if you have another consultant do it. So we've turned, whoever's going to do that to make sure that, this effort just doesn't become a one and done, but something that can be utilized as a tool for, many years to follow.
Alrighty, thank you. Anything else, Matt, you got on this subject?
Nope. I think we were on 12 on our agenda.
Alrighty, second reading and adoption of ordinance number 20-816, ordinance authorizing sales of municipal owned land to Drop Time Properties LLC.
Mayor and council, this is the second reading of the ordinance, of which you conducted at your last meeting. There's been no changes to that ordinance, but this is regarding the property out in Industrial Park that's being sold, for the construction of right of way. So obviously we'd ask for you to consider adopting that resolution. Within that resolution, it authorizes me to sign off or to be the signature in regards to the purchase of that property. We actually have closing scheduled for this coming Thursday.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
I'll second.
Alrighty, motion by Chad, second by Mary to approve. And any other discussion? Chad,
Aye.
Mary,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
aye. Motion carries. Moving on, under new business, ordinance number 20-818, ordinance extending local state of emergency.
Mayor and council, this is, I think probably the third or fourth time now that we've looked to either adopt a state of emergency or extend one. As you may have known or heard that the governor recently extended the state of emergency, I believe, till August 12th. And so what's being asked for you tonight to consider extending ours to our first meeting in August. And as I've shared in the past, this is really just a tool for us. Right now, we're not in immediate need of an emergency, but as we've seen over the last couple of months, things have changed from day to day, hour to hour, week to week. And so this just continues to give us the opportunity to move on the fly. If need be, obviously allows us to continue to potentially collect costs that may incur due to any costs that may come about with the pandemic. I'll just give one example of the benefit of having the state of emergency. When the governor came out and allowed businesses or restaurants to be open outdoors, our normal process would have given businesses 2 to 4 weeks to get approval from the city council to do that. Having the state of emergency allowed me to really grant those within a day or two. And so those are some of the benefits. Those are some of the tools that were allowed with these state of emergencies to allow us to move on the fly. Like I said, I don't see an immediate need, but it does give us some flexibility. And so that's why staff has asked the council to consider extending that local state of emergency. And that would extend you to August 11th, which is your first meeting in next month.
Can we have a motion for that?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by Chad, second by Mary to approve. Any other discussion? All in favor, Chad,
Aye.
Mary,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
aye. Motion carries. Governance, we have Hutchinson Utilities Commission minutes from May 27th, 2020. Liquor Hutch quarterly report. Who's all out there, Matt?
Kent's the only one who stuck around. So.
Everybody else ran.
Yep.
Alrighty. Kent, what do you have for us tonight?
Yes, sir. Just quickly, on the Highway 15 Main Street front, yeah, things continue to go well. They're onto the utilities, working through the 3rd Avenue South intersection by the post office, getting started on the deep sanitary sewer, and that'll continue down to just north of the 5th Avenue South intersection. Yeah, 5th Avenue South continues to be open. Fifth Avenue is getting a lot of use, you know, as a result of that, but that is what it is. There's a lot of traffic that's migrating north and ultimately getting to the firm closure just north of that intersection, but that wasn't to be unexpected. So other than that, yeah, no, they keep chipping away at the concrete, curbing and sidewalk and paving as they go. This concrete subcontractor is spread pretty thin. They're working in Litchfield, they're working in other communities down in the southern part of the state. So I think we're just we're fortunate that they got a leg up on their work early on in the project. So hoping they continue to show up on a regular basis and just keep chipping away at that sidewalk work and ultimately the paving of the roadway through 2nd Avenue South here in the near future. If there's any questions on the Main Street front.
Kent, are they still ahead of schedule?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think our concerns with this project being delivered in one construction year have eroded away. And yeah, I would say they're a couple weeks or so ahead of schedule. So I think the biggest concern is, like I just mentioned, the availability of the concrete subcontractor and the amount of work that they have on their plate. Utility wise, I foresee the utilities, you know, being on the doorstep of Fifth Avenue probably in 2 to 3 weeks. And then it'll be a question of where they're at concrete wise, whether they can get into the Fifth Avenue intersection. At that point in time, the 2nd Avenue South intersection will need to be open prior to them starting the work and closing down the Fifth Avenue South intersection. So I think that's the big question in front of us is, yeah, how quickly the concrete work will be proceeding. Anything else?
Kent, are they, when are they coming back with the colored concrete? Somebody asked me that.
I think that'll be one of the last things they do. Yeah, like I said, they'll be focusing on the curb, the gray sidewalk, and probably most importantly, the roadway. And I foresee the colored concrete getting filled in at the very end. You know, and there's a lot of things that need to be done prior to that colored concrete being placed. You know, obviously they need to get the light pole bases poured. They want to install the light poles. They want to install posts, excuse me. You get into some signal wiring that needs to be installed for the pedestrian push buttons and such down at the intersections. And then they need to do all the ADA ramps and such. So yeah, that's one of the last things we'll see.
How about South 15 down by the...
Yeah, likewise, they keep opening areas up and chipping away at that work. I think that's, I think MnDOT is hoping that continues to proceed as quickly as possible. You know, like I said, that's the same concrete subcontractor. So, yeah, I foresee them just, they're coming to town when they can, and they're working long, hard hours. They do have a lot of people, so they'll just keep chipping away at it. I think ultimately the thin overlay, the roadway overlay, is scheduled for, I believe, the second and third week of August. And they want to have all the concrete work done prior to that. So we'll see if that happens.
All right, thanks, Ken.
Other than that, yeah, just quickly, airport utility extensions, that bid opening is scheduled for July 22nd. John Olson has been working closely with Civil Air Patrol staff, and things are still falling into place to get us to a comfort level of bidding a project and hopefully ultimately awarding it shortly thereafter. And then lastly, I just wanted to mention, we have a summer intern this year that's got a little bit of prior engineering experience, and we've had him doing some, I guess, intersection analysis count work. And the first one I wanted him to take a look at was our new South Grade Road mini roundabout out there. And what we had him do was do 5 2-hour time periods during the peak AM and the peak PM. So that equates to generally 7 to 9 AM, 3 to 5 PM. And count the movements, count the number of vehicles first and foremost, count the turning movements of vehicles, or whether they just carry on straight through the intersection. And then I think most importantly, just monitor any abnormal behaviors, abnormal movements, stopping in the roundabout, taking a left at the roundabout, things of that nature. And I think what we're happy to report is there wasn't a fair amount of abnormal activities going on. Granted, we had a couple of left turns mixed in there, but that's is what it is. I think you would see that at any of the roundabouts, even the 2 out on Highway 15, if you sat there long enough. And I think most importantly, what was noticed is that we're seeing good driver behavior with respect to yielding to the vehicles within the roundabout. People aren't necessarily trying to run the roundabout per se, just buzz straight through it or cut people off. And and really all that was noticed was what we would term as one close call. There weren't any accidents per se, but there was one incident where a person exiting what I'll call the Cashwise mall leg cut somebody off heading eastbound towards Highway 15. And that's the movement we're going to continue to look at and maybe do something differently with the yield sign. I don't know if we have to make it a flashing yield sign or whatever we need to do, or more prevalent kind of a stop bar pavement marking treatment. But I think that's what we see out there. And when I've monitored it on occasion is, people leaving the Cashwise mall area and just not yielding and for whatever reason. So I think that's what we're going to continue to monitor. I just wanted to report on that all in all, what he came back with and the number of movements and variety of turning movements and vehicles. I think it's functioning very well. I don't know if council has any thoughts or observations on that front. Kent,
did he count the people that were on their phones as they were driving too?
No, that's a different topic. I think people are back at that for sure. That's it.
There was no stacking that going up to the light. I've never noticed it.
No, I think the only time we have an issue with stacking, and like we talked about during the design process and study process, and what played out, I think we noticed it last I think when school was in session, last fall, winter. But during you would see some fairly significant stacking around 2:30 or so. Obviously when the high schools getting out and such. We might have seen it stack back up into the roundabout a couple of occasions. I heard about it. I monitored it a few days during that time frame on school days. I didn't see it per se, but I did hear as much. But I think that's a very short time period peak issue that's occurring. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Tim, did you come back did you have something else for us, Tim, or not?
No, Mayor, I got nothing else. I guess maybe one of the only things you may have noticed, we've had our summer help out, and we've been doing some beautification efforts around our lift station rehabs, and then we've continued them to the existing lift stations. So we're trying to dress things up a little bit, and we might jazz things up over by the school fields and stuff like that. So we're hoping if somebody notices something that it's favorable, and we're trying to impress a little bit and dress up something that might not be that great of something to look at or be somewhat nice or so. That's putting a lot of effort into that this year.
All right, thanks, Tim. Chad, do you have anything for us tonight?
I do not.
Mary?
Nope, I'm good.
Dave?
Oh, just one thing. I see the parks down along the river are staying relatively busy, and shelters are being used, and always good to see people around there by all means. So it's fantastic. That's about all I have, except for bicyclists. Sorry, Chad, but some of them aren't paying much attention to stop signs. They're rolling through them, and I worry about them a lot of times because they're taking a chance sometimes when they do that. So I just a word of caution is all. Thank you. And it wasn't anything directly at you, Chad.
All right, thanks, Dave. Matt?
A couple of things. Just a reminder, we do have a workshop scheduled before our next council meeting. That's on the 2019 budget audit. I think I've shared this with a lot of you. We've begun the process. I'm beginning to plan for our next phase on the police station. And, we've kind of talked about this a little bit individually, and I think we even shared during some of our budget processes, but we're looking at doing some construction management for this project and bringing the construction manager in to assist us both during the design phase and then to oversee the construction of that. And so I think we're going to be doing some direct solicitation with some interviews regarding the construction management services. And then we're most likely going to continue to move forward with Wold as our architect. And so we hope to have a construction manager on board probably by the end of August, which with the design work and the site layout work probably begin in September. So I just kind of want to give everybody a heads up that project has kind of started back up again, and we've started moving forward with the next phase of that. And then I also did receive our branding report last week, and so that project's starting to come to an end, and we'll be sifting through that report, and most likely will be some sort of presentation to the city council in the upcoming months. Otherwise, unless you have any questions, that's it from my neck of the woods.
All right, thanks, Matt. All I had is I've had a few people come up and ask about wondering if we were going to mandate our city to wear masks out in the public. As I told them, I said if they're comfortable not wearing a mask, that's fine. If they want to wear a mask, fine. All I said was be cognizant of where you're at, your surroundings, and wash your hands. And that's about it. So with that, we can adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Chad, second by Dave to adjourn. Chad?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye. Good night.
Aye. We're adjourned. Thanks, guys.